Do you want to have the freedom to just pick up the guitar and then just play something freely without having to mimic a song that you've already learned? Or maybe you're hanging out with your spouse or a buddy and they ask you to play some mood music, something to fit the vibe, right? And you want to be able to actually play something that you're proud of. Well, buckle up because I'm going to show you exactly how to do that in the simplest way possible. And it's going to harken back to something that most of us have actually learned as children. That's how simple it's going to be. Oh, and by the way, we're not going to need to venture anywhere past the 3rd fret for this lesson. So whether you're an acoustic or an electric guitar player, this is going to apply to you. Just remember to stick around till the very end of the lesson because I've got a free gift for you and your guitar. You're both going to love it. Do you remember learning this as a kid? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Remember that? Well, that's going to be our benchmark on how we play freely on guitar. Bear with me. It'll all make sense in a little bit. So what that whole do, re, mi business actually is what's called the major scale, right? It's essentially the scale that all of Western music stems from. It all boils down to the major scale. So naturally, we want to take a very fundamental approach to understanding it. It's kind of like the foundation for everything. So let's learn it, right? If we were to play it on guitar, especially if we were to focus on the key of C major, which is what we're going to be doing for the purposes of this lesson. We're going to start here with Do, which is the first note. That's C, 3rd fret on the A string. Then we have Re, which is open D, and then Mi, which is the 2nd fret on the D string there. And then Fa, long, long way to run, right there on the 3rd fret of the D string. Sol, which is the open G string. And then La, which is the 2nd fret of the G string. And then T, drink with jam and bread, open B string. And then Do, our octave, right here on the 1st fret of the B string. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. There it is. Now, one big reason why the scale is so important is it actually gives us a layout of what chords we can play in any given key. So if we're focusing on the key of C major, let's find out how we can actually create chords just by using the notes in that scale. Now remember, we have those 8 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But it's really those first 7, right? Because the 8 is the same as the first, right? It's just the octave of it. But those 7 unique notes can each give us an entire chord that we can actually put together to create chord progressions. Now, how we want to think of these notes is in 2 ways. The first one is the actual names of the notes. We have C, we have D, E, F, G, A, B, and then C for our octave, right? So that's one way we want to think of the notes. The second way that we want to identify these notes, and arguably the more important way, in my opinion, is by their numbers, which is real simple. Starting from the first one, 1, obviously, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We don't really count the 8th when we think about their numbers. This is the same as the first, right? Same note. Now let's talk about how we can turn these individual notes into full chords. So if we're in the key of C major, right? C being the root, the first, right? That's obviously going to be a major chord because we're in the key of C major, right? So the C major chord that we know and love, that's our first chord or our 1 chord. The second chord, which is D, is played as a minor chord and we would call that the 2 minor in the key of C major. The 2 minor being a D minor chord. Then the next note, which is 3, or our 3rd, right? We'd make that a minor as well. So we'd call that our 3 minor or E minor. And then our 4th note, which is F, that would be major. So we play an F major chord as our 4 chord. Then we have 5th, which is the open G. So we play a G major chord as our 5th or our 5 chord. Then we have our 6th, which is A. That's going to be a minor, so we play A minor. And then we have our 7th, which is B. And we would play a B half diminished. And then if we wanted to resolve it back to the 1 chord, which, when you hang on that 7, right, you want it to come right on home back to C major. Now let's hear them in a little bit of context. I want to show you how they actually work, right? So you don't just have to take my word for it. Use your own ears, okay? If I were to play in the key of C major, the 1 chord, and then the 3 minor chord, ooh, that sounds right, like correct. And let's say I wanted to play the 6 minor chord. Sounds nice. And then maybe the 4 chord. That right there, those are the basic ingredients for a nice chord progression. So I'd be playing 1, 3 minor, 6 minor, 4. And if I wanted to put a little rhythm to it, I could do something like this. And that's a perfectly valid chord progression. And that's something that I just tried out. I just kind of picked chords within that framework of the chords of the major scale, and it absolutely worked. So we used our ears to figure it out. And you can try these chords out without even knowing what they're gonna sound like yet. All you gotta do is follow the framework that I just showed you about the 7 chords in the key of C major, and then just throw them in a random order. You know, let's say we wanna do something else. Let's say you wanted to start on the 6 minor, right? A minor, which happens to be the relative minor of C. Very common move. You want to sort of change the vibe a bit to more of a somber kind of sound. Let's say we were to do 6 minor. Let's just kind of pick random numbers. Let's do 6 minor, 4, 2 minor, 5. Let's try that. So 6 minor would be A minor, 4 is F, 2 is D minor, and then 5 is G. That might work. Let's play those out a little bit. That totally works. Oh, and by the way, if you're getting value out of this lesson, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to our YouTube channel so you can let us know that you're enjoying these lessons and you'd like to see more of them. Thank you in advance, and let's get right back to business. But we don't got to stop there with just playing chords. We can add some lead stuff as well. So why don't we throw a scale into the mix that's going to keep us in the same neighborhood, right? And also give us plenty of options melodically that we can throw in. And I have just a scale in mind. It's called the open position scale, and it's essentially a scale that takes up the first 3 frets of your guitar, and it utilizes open strings. It starts on the low E string, open, and 1st fret, 3rd fret, and then open A, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, open D, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, open G, 2nd fret, open B, 1st fret, 3rd fret, open high E, and then 1st fret, 3rd fret. Now, what I love about this scale is that it actually contains a multitude of scales within it. It's an entire scale pattern that covers all 6 strings, but a basic diatonic scale is just 7 notes. So this actually contains a ton of scales and including modes that can be used with the moving chords and the chord progressions that we've been messing around with. For example, let's take a look at A minor, right? If I were to go from A to A, within the open position scale, based on the same fingering of the same frets, I could actually play the A minor scale. It's all contained within. If I were to play a C major chord, right, which is the 1 chord, I could play the C major scale that we just learned. All contained within the open position scale. If I played a G chord, and I went from G to G, starting from this one, that's actually a G mixolydian. And if I were to go from, let's say, an E minor, starting from the low E, and I went from E to E, that's E Phrygian. So you get a lot of these different scales that give you so many options melodically and harmonically. And we're not having to venture anywhere past the 3rd fret. Isn't that cool? Oh, and by the way, the A minor pentatonic is also contained within the open position scale. I can go, and I can even keep going if I wanted to go up into a new octave. So it's amazing that without having to actually change any of the note positions of the open position scale, I can just take a chunk of it and play through the notes, and I'll actually be playing some kind of scale that will automatically work in the key of C major because it contains all of the modes of the chords within that key. And even if you didn't understand a single thing I just said, that's okay. All you got to do is learn this scale, memorize it, get it under your fingers, and just trust that without having to deviate from it in any way, you can find so many great options for playing melody lines and lead licks along with your chords. So let's create another chord progression real quick and then just pepper in notes from the open position scale, maybe in a way that connects the chords in a nice fluid kind of way. But I want to keep this purely improvisational. These are not going to be any pre-existing ideas. We're doing this right now, you and me. Let's create a chord progression. So I'm going to go ahead and start with, let's just do 6 minor, right? A minor is always nice. Let's do 6 minor and then 3 minor, E minor, sounds nice. And then let's do F, 4 chord. And then let's do C, the 1 chord. It'll give it kind of all of the melodic movement that I'd want, right? It's got the minor chords and the major chords. So all together, it'd be like... has a nice resolution at the end there. It's because it resolves to the 1, right? So let's go ahead and just mess around with it. I'm just going to play those chords, and I'm going to just play notes within the open position scale. I'll kind of freeform it a little bit, but try to stick to some kind of rhythm and just to sort of center the whole thing. And let's just see what it sounds like. All right, I'm just gonna stop myself because I could just keep on going. But that was pretty much the point I was trying to make, is that you can sit there and mess around. You know, after you've really spent some time and memorized the scale, memorized the chords, right? And just explored your options. Go from one chord to the next and use the open position scale to connect the chords if that's how you want to do it. Or you can do something like, you know, you could play like a kind of a low chord and then play a higher lick. And then like just wait until you, or you know, keep going until you land on a note that you like. It's fun in the beginning to just free form it, you know, so you don't necessarily have the pressure of a specific beat that you got to stick to. But over time, as you actually practice this and get familiar with it and comfortable with it, you can just sit there and just make up a chord progression on the fly, and you'll know exactly how to connect them just by using little like road maps that are laid out for you right there in the open position scale. This is the stuff that's going to give you the ability to just pick up the guitar and play something without any kind of pressure or expectation attached to it. You can literally guess your way through it if you want. You just have to stick to the framework of those 7 chords in the major scale and playing notes within the open position. That's it. You stay within those boundaries and you're golden, baby. Now, of course, this concept can expand way further into new types of chord harmonies, new keys, all that stuff. But this lesson puts your foot in the door to building the habit of being able to play freely and musically. And just starting with something simple like open position chords and open position scales. Now, today we focus on the key of C major as your starting point. But there's a plethora of more keys, major and minor, that you can learn how to solo freely in. And if you want to learn how to start soloing in those other keys, I actually got the very thing that's going to get you there. It just so happens to be your free gift that I'm giving to you now that you made it to the end of the lesson. This bad boy is a comprehensive guide on how to instantly solo in any key. You're going to learn how to find any key on your fretboard in record time, and then subsequently learn how to solo in those keys. I'm telling you, there is no better lesson on the internet for this particular topic. Just be sure to click here to claim your free copy or check the link in the description box. I really want you to take what you learned today and put it into practice as soon as you're able. You're going to notice right away how good it feels to just be able to play something, whether it's for yourself, by your own volition, or by the request of someone you care about.